What up nerds, my name's Ryan. I did my HSC in 2019 and in this video I'm going to be going through an essay paragraph that I wrote for The Merchant of Venice on the portrayal and subversion of gender roles. In addition to this video, I also have 3 other videos on The Merchant of Venice, one on religious and moral contradictions, how emotions can override values, and the complexity of human nature. In each of the videos I go through an example paragraph that I actually used in my trials in HSC and then explain the structure, the techniques used, and the generalized thought process that I go through when writing one of these paragraphs. If you want to see these other videos, you can click the link in the top right above now or in the description below. The role of storytelling has the ability to make the responder question the stereotypical gender roles within society. Through the telling and receiving of stories, responders can be enlightened with new perspectives around gender and the attributes of feminine characteristics. Shakespeare is able to expertly create a dynamic and well-rounded female character, Portia, who effectively challenges the assumptions of a woman's role in society during the time period. The majority of Shakespeare's female characters are static. If they are dynamic, they are generally presented with more masculine attributes. Portia, however, is a wonderful exception to this trend. She is initially presented as a controlled and dependent young woman without much free will. However, throughout the course of the play, she is revealed to be capable of independent and intelligent thought while still exhibiting the same, more typically feminine characteristics of grace, emotional wisdom, and beauty. For instance, at the beginning of the play, Portia is portrayed as obedient and submissive to her father's wishes. Not being able to choose a husband for herself, her fate is to be decided by an irrational lottery played by potential suitors. Portia woefully summarizes her situation as the will of a living daughter curbed by the will of a dead father. Shakespeare employs a clever pun through the word will. In the case of the father, the will is referring to a legally binding document in which he specifies her fate. However, in the case of Portia, will refers to her desire and ability to choose a partner. I may neither choose whom I would nor refuse whom I dislike. Her lack of ability to choose is a metaphor for the oppression of women in the time period and throughout history. In addition to being immensely wealthy, Shakespeare also uses visual imagery to portray Portia as immensely beautiful. As Bassanio states, "In Belmont is a lady richly left, and she is fair. Her sunny locks hang on temples like a golden fleece." Although the flattering description is complimentary of her beauty, this obsession with her beauty also adds to the perception of Portia being under the control of the male gaze and submissive in her role. Despite this initial characterization, throughout the play, Portia demonstrates that she is far from a cookie-cutter female stereotype. Her keen verbal and emotional intelligence is demonstrated during the trial scene. Disguised as a male lawyer, the Duke and even her husband Bassanio are unable to see past her disguise. This speaks to a weakness of masculinity and the male-dominated Venetian society, an inability to connect with humans on an emotional level. With exquisite control of language, Portia attempts to convince Shylock to show mercy. The quality of mercy is not strained, it droppeth as the gentle rain from heaven. It is an attribute to God himself. Shakespeare's use of the metaphor gentle rain and biblical allusions to heaven and God serve to depict the act of mercy as unconditional and of divine merit. When her appeal to ethos fails, she uses her quick thinking and logic to make Shylock suffer the consequences of a more obscure legal argument, one that the males of the court were unable to conjure. Despite not even being trained as a lawyer, Portia argues that if Shylock spills but one drop of Christian blood, thy land and goods are by the laws of Venice confiscate. It is in this way that Shakespeare portrays Portia as a well-rounded and intelligent female character. Through the telling and receiving of stories, powerful characterization can allow the responder to question assumptions about such things as gender stereotypes. Okay, so the first section here is our standard introduction, and it makes direct reference to the English syllabus, right? Role of storytelling, I'm pretty sure, is in there. Telling and receiving of stories, I recall being in like the actual stimulus thing that they give you. Here it is. They may also consider the role of storytelling throughout time to express and reflect particular lives and cultures. And also here, students explore how texts may give insight into challenging assumptions, igniting new ideas, or reflecting personally. And so here where it says new perspectives around gender and the attributes of feminine characteristics, that's about questioning the assumptions of the culture and the society of the time. The next section is a link directly to the text. So notice that in the first section, there was no actual mention of Portia. There was no actual mention of the play itself, The Merchant of Venice. But this second section here is where you take the idea, the conceptual idea in the introduction, and show how it is relevant to the text that you're studying. So Shakespeare is able to expertly craft a dynamic and well-rounded female character, Portia, who effectively challenges the assumptions of a woman's role in society in the time period. And then it goes on to explain what's basically the main thesis of the entire paragraph. Then the next section basically shows examples in the text of the oppression of women, more specifically how Portia is limited in being able to choose a husband for herself, despite the fact that she has an immense amount of power within society generally, because she has a lot of money. It's not like she's poor or anything, but she's still unable to choose her own destiny. And we have the quote here, "The will of a living daughter curbed by the will of a dead father," where Shakespeare employs a pun, which would be considered a technique, how the word will is referring to two different things. One is the actual literal will, like the physical will that the father has written, and the second being a reference to Portia's ability to choose. Then the next one, "I may neither choose whom I would nor refuse whom I dislike," serves as a metaphor, which is the technique there, for the oppression of women in the time period and throughout history. This section here just talks about the obsession with Portia's beauty and how Shakespeare uses the visual imagery of she is fair, that basically meant light skin, which in the society at the time would have been considered a mark of beauty, basically. And then her sunny locks, referring to her hair, hang on temples like a golden fleece. Although it's very flattering and it's a description of beauty, it also shows a sort of oppression in the society where the women are not necessarily valued for anything other than their beauty. And then this whole section shows how she subverts the assumptions and the typical gender stereotypes that you'd see. So subverts assumptions. Despite this initial characterization, throughout the play, Portia demonstrates that she is far from a cookie-cutter female stereotype. Her keen verbal and emotional intelligence is demonstrated during the trial scene. Blah, 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 blah. We have, "The quality of mercy is not strained. It droppeth as the gentle rain from heaven. It is an attribute to God himself." In that quote, Shakespeare is using a metaphor and biblical allusions. Those are two techniques that he's using, describing the quality of mercy as something that is very, very, very valuable and, like I said, of divine merit. When her appeal to ethos fails, so that's another technique even there. And the appeal to ethos here is an appeal to an authority, someone who is trustworthy, something that is ethical in nature. And she does that by saying it is an attribute to God himself. So it's not an appeal to logos, which is like an appeal to reasoning, or an appeal to pathos, which I think is an appeal to a person's emotions. It's an appeal to the higher power. She's trying to say to Shylock, you need to put your petty quarrels aside, you need to put your destructive emotions aside, and recognize that mercy is of divine merit. It is of great importance to ethics as a whole. But when this appeal to ethos fails to Shylock, because Shylock's just so angry, she uses her quick thinking and logic to make Shylock suffer the consequences of a more obscure legal argument. So this is where she makes an appeal to logos. Portia argues that if Shylock spills one drop of Christian blood, thy land and goods are by laws of Venice confiscated. It is in this way that Shakespeare portrays Portia as a well-rounded and intelligent female character. So she's a dynamic character because we see throughout the play she changes from this submissive doormat into this very strong and intelligent person who's dangerous if she wishes to be. And then the last section is just a pretty standard conclusion. Through the telling and receiving of stories, powerful characterization can allow the responder to question assumptions about such things as gender stereotypes. So there again, telling and receiving of stories is a link to the syllabus and also questioning assumptions. All right, that's it for this video. Just a reminder, I've got 3 other videos of a similar format to this one on religious and moral contradictions, emotions overriding values, and the complexity of human nature. To watch those, click the link in the middle of the screen now. That will take you to a playlist with all of them. Also, if you happen to be doing One Night the Moon or The Curious Incident of the Dog in the Nighttime, I have videos on those too, which you can find in the playlist below. So good luck, and I'll see you in the next video.